Happy Tuesday. It's November 2nd. This is the 27th episode of season 2 of the Be Your Own Hero Show. Hero is an acronym. It means helping everyone reaps optimism. In other words, it's a reciprocal action. You help yourself as you help others. Try it. You'll like it. I'm your host. I'm sekouwrites. I'm a professional creative and the creator of what is now known as the Hero Ministry, which you are clearly a part of if you're watching this show. So quick disclaimer, I am not a certified personal trainer, nor am I a licensed financial advisor. So do your own research, do your own homework. I'm simply sharing with you what has worked for me, and in many cases, what has not worked for me, in hopes that you get some value out of it. Okay, all that said, shout out to New Thought Media Network for giving me the space and the opportunity to be here. This is their website, ntmedia.org. You can make a donation there. You can also check out the other programming on the network. Speaking of which, right after this at 10:15 is prayer time, and then right after that is Sip with Rev Melissa. Okay, so let's get into some Hero Ministry news. Today is day 155. 155 of me running every single day since the first day of June. That effort has become known now as the Hero Charity Run. If you've been following me from the beginning, you know that originally it was just a birthday challenge for myself. But now it's grown and grown and grown. Today was day 155. Again, thank you to whoever sent me the tuna packets. I appreciate it. I put those in my backpack today. I haven't found anyone to give them to yet. And I might have a sidebar about that. But they're in my backpack and they're going out with me. And so that'll help a lot, I'm sure. Okay. So just a reminder that my goal is 500 miles run and $5,000 raised by December 4th. So that's basically a month away. Real close now. This is the final leg. In terms of my mileage, for the month of October, I did 105 miles. That brings my grand total back to 402 miles. I said back because remember previously I thought that I was at 400 miles, but I wasn't because I wasn't doing my math right. Don't worry about my math skills. Don't worry about that. But now we are a little over 400 miles at 402 miles. So that means all I need to do is complete another 100 miles during the month of November. And that'll bring us to the top of December, right before the 4th annual Hoodies for the Homeless event, sponsored by Project Love Strong in Nashville, Tennessee. So the goal is to raise the rest of the money between now and then. And as I mentioned before, we're over halfway, $2,510. So I want to raise the rest of the money to get up to $5,000, if not more, but at least $5,000. So donate if you can. If you can't, spread the news and spread the word to other people who might not be aware of it. I keep being surprised by the fact that people are unaware of it, or they're aware that I'm running, but they're not really sure why I'm running. I get that a lot. I'm like, so what are you doing again? So you'd be surprised. People that you think know what I'm doing probably don't. So feel free to share and help me reach my goal. Okay, so I said I was going to circle back about the tuna packet. So what I'm learning from myself is that I have to act in the moment, because there are certain unhoused folks that stay stationary, but not for long. I thought of that because there was someone that I wanted to ask if they wanted a tuna packet this morning, but I was like, all right, well, let me finish this leg of my run and I'll circle back. And I did circle back and he was gone. So I just have to remember to just go ahead and stop in progress and check with people and see what they need. Okay, so that said, let's move on to the money. Let's move on to the money. We've got a couple of things to talk about. Today is Tip Tuesday, and shout out to the people in the chat that are commenting. Shout out to Nan and shout out to Pastor Al. Appreciate you guys being here live and commenting. So let's do my new affirmation. Here we go. I am so happy and grateful to be a multimillionaire in every area of my life. I'm so happy and grateful to be a multimillionaire in every area of my life. I want you guys to take that in and take it with you. As I was saying yesterday, and I will probably continue to say, the reason, I didn't come up with this, but the reason that happy and grateful are in the affirmation itself is to remind you to feel those feelings as you read the affirmation. So when you read, I am so happy, that's a reminder to feel happy in the moment and feel grateful in the moment, because that feeling tone imbues the affirmation with more energy and power and helps it get all the way to the subconscious. Otherwise, if you just repeat the words, you're still keeping it in the 10% of your mind that is the conscious brain, and it doesn't penetrate to the 90% that is the subconscious. So the feeling tone is what helps you dig down into the subconscious. So remember, I am so happy and grateful. Don't just say I'm happy and grateful, but practice feeling happy and feeling grateful as you recite that affirmation. It ain't easy. It ain't easy, but practice that, because that will help the affirmation live and grow inside you. Okay, that said, let's talk money. I want to circle back to bricks. I started talking about bricks as a concept a while ago. In other words, building your wall of financial wealth brick by brick. So I want to circle back to that metaphor. Brick number one, what I call garden money, is the index fund. That is the seemingly simplest, steadiest form of investing in the stock market, an index fund. Get you an index fund. That's your first move. Well, technically, your first move is to open a brokerage account. And just a reminder, if you haven't done that yet, do it now, because you don't have to fund it. In other words, you can open a brokerage account with zero money. Zero money. So go ahead and open a brokerage account. Push past that fear if you're still on the fence. Push past that, open a brokerage account. That's number one. Number two, buy an index fund. The one that I've been talking about is the one that most of us have heard about, the S&P 500. We've all heard that, I think, just in popular culture, not knowing what it is. At least I didn't know what it was. But it is an index fund. They have literally invested in 500 different companies, hence the name, and it returns well year over year, year over year, year over year. So that is brick number one, index fund. If you don't do the S&P 500, there are plenty of other index funds that track similarly. That's your first brick. That's the garden money, what I call the garden money. Plant it in the garden and let it grow over time. And if you saw my show yesterday, you know that I just got is it my first? I think it might be my first dividend payment for the S&P 500. I only have one share, and it returned $1.50, just almost $1.50. But it also grows. I didn't only make money on the dividend. I also made money because it has appreciated in value just for the couple months that I've had it. So I'm up $9 just over a couple months. So that has reinforced my conviction that the index funds, that the S&P 500 is your garden brick, is my garden brick and yours too. That's brick number one. Brick number two, we talked about growth money. So I suggested FANG, which is an acronym that stands for Facebook, Apple, Amazon, Netflix, Google. 5 tech companies that are doing very well, have been doing very well for a long time. They do not pay dividends. And instead, they use that money that would be paid for dividends to grow the company faster. That said, you don't have to buy those 5 stocks individually. Actually, it would take quite a bit of money to buy one share of each of those 5 stocks individually. But all 5 of those stocks are represented within the S&P 500. And the S&P 500 does pay dividends where those 5 individual FANG stocks do not. So what you can do is, if you want extra exposure to FANG, you can buy those on an exchange that allows fractional shares. So you can buy a little bit of all 5. But you can also just buy another share of the S&P 500 and have exposure to all 5 of them at a discount. So that's something to think about. Another thing you can do is look for a growth ETF. There are a million of them. So that is a growth ETF fund, is a ETF, which, as we've talked about here, is basically buying a whole aisle of a supermarket, everything on that aisle, which means there are multiple companies contained within the ETF. And each of the companies contained within that ETF will be a company that is earmarked for growth. So they may not pay a dividend individually, like FANG does not pay a dividend individually, but when they are contained within the ETF will pay you a dividend. So that's something to consider. It also minimizes your risk, because when you buy into an ETF, you're buying into multiple companies at once. So bricks. Garden money is index funds. Growth money is FANG, or a growth ETF. And I'm going to introduce a new brick and circle back. Now let me do it in order. So after we talked about growth stocks, we also talked about dividend stocks. So these are stocks that obviously pay a dividend. And there's all these pros and cons about how often they pay, when they pay, how much they pay, etc. So what I think is the best thing to do here is to go straight to an ETF. Look for an ETF that contains dividend paying companies like Dividend Kings or like Dividend Aristocrats. And just a reminder, Dividend Kings have increased their dividend every single year for 50 years or more. Dividend Aristocrats have increased their dividend payment every single year for 25 years. So both of those categories are very safe, or safe as you can be in the world of paying dividends. So there are actually ETFs for Dividend Kings and Dividend Aristocrats, and there are also ETFs for just dividends in general. So your play here, again, I'm not a financial advisor, do your own research, but I feel like the play here is to grab an ETF that has lots of dividend paying companies within it to minimize your risk, as opposed to trying to choose the right dividend paying company, like I was trying to do a couple weeks ago. Not trying to do that anymore. Trying to get myself a dividend paying ETF and set it and forget it. Okay, so cryptocurrency, we have talked a lot about that. I'm going to circle back to that. Let me add one more brick to this wall. The next brick that I'm adding that we have not talked about yet is REITs. That's real estate investment trusts. Okay, we all know, presumably, that real estate is one of the tried and true ways to build wealth in this country. So we also know that real estate can be expensive, unless you're a first-time home buyer, which is a whole other conversation. But it can be expensive to buy real estate. A shortcut to investing in real estate, having exposure to that asset class of real estate, is to buy real estate investment trusts, which are traded on the stock market. The interesting thing about REITs is that they are required to pay investors 90% of their revenue. What? Yeah, you heard that right. They're required to pay 90% of their revenue back to investors. So you're guaranteed to get a dividend. Now, you just have to choose the right one to make sure that the company is solvent enough that they can afford to pay 90% of their revenue and still do well. So that said, there's a couple other things that are interesting about REITs. They can often pay monthly dividends, monthly. So I want to get a REIT just to see how it accumulates monthly. That should be very interesting. Also, the buy-in for REITs tends to be very low. And is there anything else I want to say about them? No, I think that's it. But let me give you an example. So here's a REIT that's the ticker symbol for is LTC. L as in Larry, T as in Tom, C as in cat. Check that one out. It's returning about 10%, 10.7% right now. It only costs $33 per share, and it pays a 6.7% dividend monthly. Monthly. So that's the one I'm looking at right now. Take a look at it. I think I'll pick up there tomorrow because I want to keep talking about what this particular fund is for. But if you remember, check it out. Ticker symbol L as in Larry, T as in Tom, C as in cat. Check them out. I'm already out of time. So tomorrow I'm going to circle back to REITs and then circle back to cryptocurrency. Again, just building out the blocks, the building blocks of the financial wall that we're building. Okay, so keep doing. Be a hero. Be your own hero. And remember that now, right now, is better than perfect. Later.